Theologian Paul Tillich brought words of warning and passion to the German people during World War II. We're going to share some of those words here today. This week, librarian Keith Waddle, who is a frequent listener of DarkHorse, sent us one of Tillich's short essays that was broadcast by radio into Nazi Germany. And I want to give you a little bit of background on Tillich first, and then read a couple of short excerpts from one of his radio broadcasts. So Tillich was born in 1886 near Berlin. He was a German soldier during World War I. He was acting as a chaplain at that time, but that didn't protect him from seeing, he was on the front lines. He was in foxholes. He saw hell. He was in the trenches.
Didn't he bury his best friend?
I don't know that.
I think I read that.
Sounds plausible. After the war, among other things, he became a professor of philosophy at the University of Frankfurt, and he was the opposite of stuffy. He was socializing, he was dancing, he was womanizing, much to the chagrin of his wife. He was sort of a bon vivant. He left Germany for the United States as the Third Reich ascended and continued his life there. In fact, Brett, who has been a photographer all of his life, has this wonderful book, Jump, by the photographer, I don't know, maybe he was.
Photographic philosopher.
The photographer Philip Halsman, and he's just got a lot of famous people jumping in it, and
including Nixon and the Pope.
And Marilyn Monroe, and here we have Dr. Paul Tillich right there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until this morning. So he's jumping, as are all of the people in this book of philosophical photographs. So he was in the U.S., but he was watching from afar. God, there's so much fur in our world. He was watching.
That may be a local phenomenon.
Yes, I think so. He was watching from afar as the Third Reich was continued to ascend, and from March 1942 to May of 1944, he recorded 112 addresses in German for secret broadcasts by Voice of America, which fell under the control of the U.S. Office of War Information. And his aim was, and I'm quoting here from a book Against the Third Reich, Tillich's aim with these radio broadcasts was to divide the will of his German listeners from the mania of their Nazi rulers, and to spur people in strategic positions to muster the necessary courage to stand against the terrorizing police state of Nazism. And I will remind us that it is very easy to look back to the 1940s and feel righteous and like everyone would have seen what was going on. But we can be quite sure, given what we have lived through in the last 3 years, that the vast majority of people don't see it when it happens. And the radio broadcasts that he made, these 112 broadcasts that he made with the help of Voice of America and the U.S. government, are collected into a book, this book called Against the Third Reich, Paul Tillich's Wartime Radio Broadcasts into Nazi Germany. And the one I'm going to read a few excerpts from is called The Intelligentsia and Germany's Conquest, and it was originally broadcast on September 4th, 1942. And I can show my screen if you like, although it's going to be so small, hold on a second, that I'm actually going to read from the paper here. Okay. Just going to read the first two paragraphs and then the last one. My German friends, wrote Paul Tillich, today I want to speak to a group of people that is perhaps small in its supporting circle, but great in its consequences and its effects. I mean the bearers of the scholarly work, of art and literature, of music and public discourse. Even if they were 100,000, they would be few in proportion to the millions of German people. But among these millions, there is no one who is not influenced in any way by this group, even if only in the language that he speaks and the technology that he uses. For this reason, the leaders of the intellectual life of a nation are infinitely important for its destiny. This group of intellectually leading Germans is more responsible for the tragedy of Germany and the misfortune that it has brought on the world and itself than the masses of the nation are, and nearly as responsible as that small stratum of landed proprietors and large entrepreneurs who handed over weapons and capital to National Socialism, because they trembled in the face of social reorganization. Why did a great portion of the German scholars, writers, and artists make common cause with the forces of reaction, which held the stirrups for the present regime? Many will say what many of these stirrup holders are saying today. We did not know that the rider whom we helped into the saddle would ride the German nation and many nations with it into the abyss. We were in error, and we have made amends for that. Such an admission is certainly valuable and more promising for the future than the attitude of those who, even today, when the abyss has already become visible, pronounce their attitude at that time to be correct. And yet the admission of error is not enough. One must understand how the error could come about, what roots it had, and one must exterminate these roots in order that new errors and new harm may not grow forth from them. What are the roots from which one can account for the breakdown of the German intellectual leaders? How can they be exterminated? And what mission does an intellectual-bearing stratum have in the reconstruction of Germany? Every thinking German should put this question to himself. Above all, those who rank themselves among the bearers of intellectual life.
Wow.
And then we're going to have one more, but maybe we talk about that before we share the...
Yeah, that's incredible. I must say, I feel like sending it to Sam Harris. I think he might appreciate it. I'd hope he'd appreciate it. But anyway, yeah, that's extremely powerful, and I love the point he makes about the responsibility that these people have, the disproportionate responsibility and their disproportionate failure, and its implication for. What did he say? Holding the stirrups for the new regime?
Holding the stirrups for the new regime.
Yeah.
Yes. The people who would have us believe that they are the intellectual lifeblood of the country and are to be trusted. And whatever conclusions they come to, you too can come to those conclusions. They're holding the stirrups for the masters who do not have your best interests at heart. And anyone who is telling you that you should not try to understand for yourself, but simply accept the authoritative conclusions of others, when you have seen with your own eyes how reliably the authoritative conclusions of others have been wrong, they also do not have your best interests at heart. Regardless of whether or not they are merely confused or are actually trying to hurt you, it doesn't matter. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. One sentence in the middle of this essay, which is extraordinary, I recommend it. The unveiling of the truth is not pleasant to those who have power and misuse this power at the expense of others. For this reason, they fear the intellect and seek either to wipe out its bearers or, what is more important in the long run, to buy them and to place them in their service. Okay, and one more, just the last paragraph of this piece. Same piece, originally broadcast by Paul Tillich, with the help of the U.S. government from America, where he was by then living, into Nazi Germany in, just looking for the dates of the broadcast, was September 4th, 1942. Final paragraph. I have spoken today in the first place to the bearers of the intellect, the scholars and writers, the artists and orators. But the intellectuals of every nation not only form the nation, but are also formed by it. And for this reason, I call out to the German nation, do not consent any longer to your philosophers and authors conjuring up a world that is not yours and that leaves you in your misery. Demand intelligence from them that is in fact intelligence, that does not glorify a wicked reality, but unveils and unmasks the roots of this reality. The intellect that sees a new reality and builds in partnership with you. The mind that says what you feel and thinks what you hope. Allow the old, feeble mind to decay behind the walls of the Reich Culture Board and make room for the new mind that changes reality.
Extremely powerful.
I know that there are many in America today, both among the class who consider ourselves intellectuals and people who don't consider themselves intellectuals, although frankly the distinction is one that in most cases I think is without a difference. But to the degree that Tillich was making a distinction, it's important in thinking about this essay. There are so many people who are not confused, and the ways that they got there are variable, but the people that we hear from, and there are a lot of them, who say, I had something in my gut. I thought that there wasn't something right. I started to see this, and then this, and then this, and I couldn't make sense of why I was supposed to start believing them after it was clear that they had at least been wrong, if not had been lying to me. so far. Thank you for having the conversations that modeled intelligent conversation again, in terms of raising awareness of where the inconsistencies were, where the bodies were buried, why the science couldn't possibly have said what they were telling us the science said, and frankly, being, if maybe most of all, just staunch in our defense of science, of actual science, not the science in follow the science, not the science that Fauci claims to embody. That's not science. What we need to be a functioning society, to have any chance of moving forward into the middle of this century, much less the next one, is actually have people who understand what science is, are willing to do it, even when the results of it produce something that you look at and go, God, I wish that weren't true. But if it is, let's go. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out what to do next. Pretending that what is true isn't serves no one in the long run.
Yeah, we have a situation where our governments, or whatever has captured them, is demonizing the very people that we need to listen to, but it is also doing so in an era where we have a new kind of pirate radio, where we have Glenn Greenwald, we have Snowden, we have Russell Brand, we have Joe Rogan, we have Woody Harrelson, we have Bobby Kennedy Jr., we have all of these voices who are, each of them taking from their own discipline and standing up courageously. John Campbell, all of these people are telling us something that we need to know, and it's like a society in exile. And I think it is time that we lean into it and figure out how the adults are going to, right the ship of state and return us to a place where we can, again, fight over how it is we can achieve the values that we all agree on.